You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamamia Out Loud. It's what women are actually talking about on Friday, the 10th of May. I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Leah Freedman.
And I'm Jessie Stevens. That was weird. I forgot to put my headphones on. Never done that before. It's like it's the first time I've... Oh, there we go. All right. Out Louders.
Here's how podcasting works.
Yeah. Last night, we did our live show in Melbourne at the Palais. It is Mamamia Out Loud Live, presented by Nivea Celia, and it was the most fun. We thought we would share a little sneak peek of how it went.
Now, I'm having a sock crisis. I don't know if anyone else is. Gen Z have cancelled fucking ankle socks. Don't even talk about sockettes. Apparently, the way that you can tell if someone's old now is that you look at their socks, and if they're invisible, which we thought they had to be, they are old.
I try and wear a bulky sock because I heard
I'm just saying.
I heard that at work once, that you're meant to wear a long sock. I look like Jerry Seinfeld.
Yes.
I'm like, you're not telling me that this looks right.
It's incredibly challenging, the whole sock
I
thing.
was trying so hard, right? And this morning we were at our production meeting where we decided what to talk about, and we were with Dolph, who's our incredibly cool young social media producer who's with us on this trip.
She's Gen Z.
She's Gen Z, and she asked us all to roll up our trousers. My stomach dropped. I began to sweat just a little bit, and I was like, shit. I have a feeling my socks are wrong. When I held up my trousers, they literally all went, oh! You'd think I'd farted, like you think I had done something so offensive, and all it was is that my Nike ankle socks were a little bit too baggy at the back.
I tried to cheat and I pulled... No, because your
She
socks
did.
were invisible, Holly. I tried to cheat and pull mine halfway out of my shoes so that they were visible.
Sydney, you're our last show, and you're up next week. Time is running out to grab your tickets, so head to outloudlive.com.au and come see us in Sydney, because we may do more, but we don't know yet, do we, Mia?
We don't.
See how the mood takes us. On the show today, the way life is going, 2 parents are barely enough. Welcome to the rise of the 3-parent family. Also, a confusing conversation between Gwyneth Paltrow and Victoria Beckham. The next essential documentary, and something sticky for your phone. That's this week's recommendations. And I'm a gardening fraud. Mia met a very out loud bride, and Jessie managed to get all her siblings around one table. It's our best and worst of the week. But first, Jessie.
In case you missed it, there's a small country town of adults in Australia who are playing a month-long game of tag, or as I called it in primary school, tips. The game has been taking place in the town of Longreach in Queensland.
This is my favourite happy news story of the week because it's just silly.
It's so silly.
And unexpected.
Okay, well, the rules are simple. You can't get the butcher back. That means that you can't re-tag the person that tagged you. We don't need to say those rules. Everyone knows the rules of tips.
No, but I want to know if there's BAR bar.
What's
Oh,
that?
why do I remember that?
BAR bar.
What's
so when
BAR
you're
bar?
holding BAR bar, I don't know why you had to spell it before you said it, but if you're touching bar, it means that you can't be tipped.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like
a really
safe,
good point.
It's a safe space.
It's
it
a
was
safe
the
space.
precursor of the safe space.
It was too.
Physically.
I don't have that information, but I'm sure that we can ask people in Longreach. You also can't tag your spouse or your partner. There's a group chat where the tags are posted. So if I tag Holly, then it's like, Holly's currently it. And she's just running around trying to tag the new person.
Get rid of my it.
The person who is it on the last day of the month at 11:59 p.m. loses the game.
I've forgotten how this works. So Holly's it.
Yeah.
She then has to tip
Find
someone.
another it who is not her spouse or her
And
partner.
is that person then out?
No, that person's it.
That person's then it. But I can only tag people who haven't been tagged yet. So as the group chat list of names gets longer and longer, my options get smaller
But
and
how do you know
smaller.
who to tip? When you're it, are people trying to tag you or you're trying to tag people?
You're
and
trying
who
to
do you
tag
tag?
people.
Just everybody in the town?
Yes, but only
Yes.
if they're playing the game. They have to opt in.
You have to opt in.
Yeah.
So there's only 10 people left, and guess what? Those 10 people, they're fast. They're fast on their feet.
Yep.
So Holly is pursuing, I don't know, Luca, and he's running around trying to tip Luca, and then Luca is in.
He's avoiding me at all costs.
Yes.
Right.
By 11:59 p.m, he is in and he has lost.
So some of the more epic tags in this group include a player being tagged while waiting an emergency with a bad back. He was tagged lightly and took it in good humour, apparently. A family whose electricity was turned off at the switch box so the tagger could sneak into the house under the cover of darkness.
Borderline criminal.
That sounds ominous. A prospective target running out of a restaurant mid-meal never to return. And someone hiding in a friend's ensuite for hours until they returned home from work.
That is so funny.
That is so fun. Someone was chased out of the town's supermarket and a junior sporting referee was interrupted mid-match.
It is important to note that it's voluntary. It's not like anyone can just break into your house and tag you.
Yeah.
Like everyone who's
You're part of the game.
is in. What I loved is this woman who said that the reason she decided to start playing, because, you know, small towns, Longreach isn't tiny, but it's a small town where a lot of people would know people. She didn't join it. And then,
I would never join this, but yes.
Yeah. And then one day she was at the doctor and they asked her all the usual questions, you know, how much do you exercise? How much do you drink? And then the doctor said, what do you do for fun? And she said she just went completely blank. She said, as a middle-aged, mid-career mother of 3 living in middle Australia, I did not know how to answer that question. And that's why she decided to join the Tips gang.
Tag your it.
They say it takes a village to raise a child. You've no doubt heard that. But for a man named David J. and another woman called Rowan Mangan, the typical path to parenting was not going to necessarily work. There are 2 stories this week that have made me really think about what it means to be a parent, and people who are basically saying, do you know what? 2 parents isn't enough. A lot of families are 1-parent families. That's certainly incredibly difficult. And so they're saying, well, maybe the answer is 3 parents. David J. is the founder of the Asexual Visibility and Education Network in America, which in itself sounds very interesting. But his asexuality kind of isn't the point, even though he's a big name in the asexual movement. If you're asexual, it means that you don't experience sexual attraction, although you can have romantic relationships. But as he grew older, he started to think less about sort of sex and romance and beyond even his own identity to issues of parenting and family life, because he wanted to be a dad. Of course, fostering and adoption were options, but he wanted not just kids, he also wanted a co-parent to help him raise kids, even though he wasn't interested in a romantic partnership. And he was curious about other ways that parenting and families could look. So he's now part of a 3-parent family in Northern California. He lives with a married couple, neither of whom he is romantically or sexually involved. Their names are Avery and Zeke. He's not part of their marriage, but is a father to their biological daughter, who's called Tahli, and her full name includes all 3 of their last names. And in California, interestingly, 3-parent adoption is recognised. They're a lot more common than you'd think. There was a study from 2014 in America that found fewer than half of American kids lived in so-called traditional nuclear 2-parent families with 2 married parents. Divorce and remarriage are obviously more common. So often there is a 3rd parent and often a 4th parent by accident. And the queer and polyamorous communities obviously have plenty of examples of 3-parent families. And one of those is my guest this week on No Filter. Her name's Rowan Mangan. She is in a monogamous throuple relationship with 2 other women, and they are raising a toddler together that Rowan gave birth to about 3 years ago. Here's a little bit of her describing how it works with 3 partners.
It's sort of interesting, right? So if you look at it in terms of I'm the biological mum, work full time. I have a 3.5-year-old with special needs, and I have one female partner who is working really hard at a very high level to make money for our family. And I have one female partner who's working really hard to support me and our household and do grocery shopping and do pickups and do runs to the doctor when I can't make it and all of this. And I'm like, we're just coping. How are women doing this on their own?
I just loved this conversation with Rowan,
Same.
right? And I just think that this is brilliant. And it actually made me a little bit sad because she talked at another point in that interview about isolated little nuclear families in their isolated little boxes all separate from each other and how lonely that can be. And I thought, yes, that's absolutely true. And that's what I've got. It's a very insular model because we can all say, oh, it takes a village. And isn't it great if you've got connected family all around and friends? But it's much harder to do than you think. You know, people move away from their families, all kinds of reasons, whether that's just moving town for a different job or whether it's moving across the world, a million reasons, or maybe they don't get along with the biological families. There could be a huge amount of reasons why you're not near them. And it's actually easier to build chosen family groups before you have kids. Like when I was younger and before I had a family of my own, I had a big social network of people I would consider chosen family. And I still do, to be honest. But we're not necessarily all in the right position at the right time to help each other out with everything. I guess when I lived in Sydney, there was a time when a lot of my friends all didn't have family around. And we did step into that for each other a fair amount, like picking up each other's kids if they were sick at school or those kind of things. But still, isolated little family groups. And it's just so refreshing to hear people saying that model doesn't work and yet I don't necessarily have mum around the corner or whatever it is. So let's try something different. I think it's great. But it did make me wonder one thing. We've been talking a little bit around this lately about whether or not we've made parenting too big a job these days. Because many of us have probably heard the stat that we've talked about a lot about the average modern mum spends more hours actively with her children now than the equivalent a generation ago, even though it's more likely that a generation ago that woman was not working outside the home. She still may well have been, but it's more likely that she wasn't. Yet somehow we're doing more intensive parenting. And Jessie and I have been talking about this a lot because there was a brilliant interview on Ezra Klein's show with this woman called Caitlin Collins, who's a professor who studies motherhood and women, about have we made parenting and mothering in particular into such a very intensive job, like insisting on lots and lots of quality time, constant supervision, which is the helicopter parenting thing, over-involvement in every aspect of their lives, that it is just unrealistic that you can do it without a village. I don't know. What do you think, Jessie?
And you can't imagine having more than one or two. Because I often think that if I live...
Children or parents?
Children. So a lot of people look at the way that they're parenting, that they're raising a child and think, I can't have two. How could I do this again with another one, let alone more than two? So
there are some economies of scale, but it's obviously more expensive and more time consuming. There's no question.
Idea of intensive parenting, and it's not just about how time consuming it is, it's about how expensive it is, how emotionally taxing it is. I think it's also the result of our obsession with optimization. Like every moment we spend with our children must be optimized. Are their senses being stimulated? Are we practicing nodding and shaking our head? Like you've got this list of all the ways in which you're trying to be the best parent that ever lived.
Like you said the other day, when you're with Luna, you feel like you have to be a play school presenter or you want to be a play school presenter. Like I've got to squeeze the juice out of every moment of this.
Yes.
So the bar for being a good mother keeps going up because it used to be, if you looked at when women didn't work outside the home, like if you ever watched Mad Men or any of those shows that were sort of set in the 50s and 60s, women, a certain type of woman, would be at home just smoking. They wouldn't see the kids. Literally, like the stats show, they would barely see the kids. Now we work outside the home, which is awesome. We have financial independence. But the definition of what it means to be a good mother, which is usually time spent with your child, that you should be with your child all the time. That's the kind of idea of what it means to be a good mother that we've all internalized. That hasn't changed and the maths doesn't work.
No, and that as a parent, you should occupy and live in the child's world. So from the activities you do, whether it's going to the park, going to the museum, just constantly, my mum didn't growing up ever get on the floor and play with me. She didn't have to. I had a twin, so I had someone to play with. But the idea that you as an adult should be occupying the child's world and then you get angry at yourself because you find it boring seems funny because, of course, you find it boring because you're not one.
Yes, a therapist once said that to me. I'm like, I feel bad that I don't want to sit on the floor and play tea parties. And she said, Mia, you're a grown woman. If you did enjoy that, that would be a problem.
But even as they get older, like it's funny because obviously my kids are way beyond that. But if we're all at home, the natural state of teenagers, not that both my kids are, but one of them is that she's in her room, like doing her own shit, right? And I'll get to a point where I'm like, well, I'm here and we should all be hanging out together immediately.
I feel that too.
And talking and doing things together, watching TV together and doing other things together. And there has to be a portion of that in every day. And look, there does, right? Like I want to check in with them and all those things. But it never really leaves you this kind of idea that I'm meant to be involved all the time, which actually I don't think you are.
You know, I've spoken before about the food stuff around babies, and you go, okay, that's a full-time job in itself. Basically, you need a degree like a childhood educator in order to even, you know, relate to your child is the idea. On the 3 parents thing, I think because of how exhausting that is, we feel like we need more adults to each child. But the funny thing about the village, because everyone's always said it takes a village to raise a child, and you're right, Holly, everything from people having to move out of cities because it's so prohibitively expensive to live in a city.
You might not be able to live anywhere near where your parents live, even in the same city.
Or your friends, or any sort of community, right? But what's funny is that people who earn more, the elite or the upper classes, have always been able to pay for their village. So there's this aspirational view of like, you might see celebrities who have 4 or 5 kids and it's like, so they pay for a nanny, they pay for a chef, they pay for a cleaner. That's their village. That's why they can still exercise or have any semblance of balance. But to think that the default of motherhood is stress and overwhelm would be the 2 terms that you hear the most. And then we wonder why the fertility rate is sliding down. It makes sense that this is the solution that people are coming up with.
And, you know, this is slightly controversial, but the people who have big families now are either very rich or very poor, right? Like that's...
Or very religious.
Yes, and it's a generalisation. But for a lot of people in the middle who need 2 active incomes all the time, then it does become incredibly stressful to make that work. But what I've loved about these stories is we all know, well, I certainly know, that the more trusted adults in my children's world, the better, right? So when people would get very upset about childcare, which I know they do, we've had that conversation on this show lots of times, and I didn't have family around, so I did pay for my village in inverted commas, as in I paid a professional to be our family daycare carer when my kids were little. She was like family to us. Like she became like family to us, and she was someone in their lives who was there for a long time and became loved and trusted. And then you've got this sort of Greek chorus of friends and anti this and anti that you do build, but you can lose it too as everybody's lives change and move on. And yet we know how important that is. So how great to have these sort of various versions of parents.
To think that the family looks like, you know, 2 straight people is just not reflective of what society looks like. I think the elephant in the room is that the 3rd parent in a lot of families is the grandmother.
Yes.
And is doing, you know, an enormous amount
or
of
the grandmothers,
childcare.
a combination.
Grandmothers. During this conversation, I've gone, I grew up with 3 parents. I grew up with mum and dad. And when people said to my mum, how did you do it with 2 sets of twins? My grandmother lived with us. Like I had 3 parents. This is exactly what I had.
Can I come and live with you?
I knew this is where this topic was leading.
No.
Recommendation.
Okay.
I'm going first because I can barely contain myself.
I feel the same about my recommendation today, so we'll compete.
The most Holly.com thing ever happened yesterday. I was looking for a podcast to listen to on my drive, and something took me, and I know you won't believe me when I say this, but I never go and see what's on Goop. I never do, like Goop podcast, because it's always insufferable.
I didn't even know it had a podcast.
Yeah, they do. Even though, as many outlanders will know, I do have a problematic crush on Gwyneth Paltrow. Anyway, I just go to look. She's only just interviewed Victoria Beckham.
Right.
Gwyneth Paltrow and Victoria Beckham talking to each other for like 40 minutes, and I was so excited.
Was it
could barely
amazing?
not sleep. Well, not really.
2 Gen X icons.
It's my reco, but I have to tell you that it's more of a kind of whoa reco than it's really insightful reco. Gwyneth is in her CEO era, right? And most of her interviews now, she wants to talk about commerce structures and how does your reporting stuff work? And
that sounds actually more interesting than her usual.
I know you would actually love it. You diss Gwyn, but you and Gwyn have a lot in common. And she wants to talk about business a lot, right? And Victoria Beckham is there just saying over and over again, I'm very, very hands-on. I'm absolutely obsessed. I follow every detail of my business. I love it. And she'll go, oh, so like, how does your compliance work? Like, how do the CEOs report to you or do you report to them or whatever? And Gwyneth and Victoria just goes, I really, really love what I do. I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky. I obsess over every detail. And then at one point, Gwyneth goes,
so are there other verticals that you want to add to Victoria Beckham?
What do you mean by vertical? That's a jazzy word, Gwyneth.
Oh, sorry. I mean, like, you know, you have fashion, now you have beauty. Have you ever thought about doing home?
Gwyneth's really trying. It's so funny because we interview people, right? We know what it's like. Gwyneth's really peddling there. She's like talking to her about her diet, talking to her about her exercise, talking to her about her marriage. And most of it Victoria does straight back. But every now and again you get a glimpse of the naughty Victoria. And there is a great final bit where Gwyneth asks Victoria what her favourite Spice Girls song is. Victoria seems to forget all the names of the Spice Girls songs. And then Gwyneth sings her favourite Spice Girls song to Victoria, and Victoria struggles to name it.
Yeah,
My favorite is, what is the name of it? Free your mind and hold together, a dream of you and me together. Say,
oh yeah,
believe it.
Two become one.
That's my favorite.
It's fantastic.
Oh, that's good.
So treat yourselves. A little treat, everybody. You might not learn a lot, but Gwyneth and Victoria having a good old chinwag on Goop podcast this week. Very fun.
My recommendation is for a documentary. I would say it's slightly more highbrow than yours.
What a surprise.
What I would say. It is a documentary called The Truth vs. Alex Jones, and it is on Binge, and I stole it from Elfie Scott. So Elfie recommended it on Instagram, and I immediately, Luca and I sat down and watched it.
There is a reported school shooting in Connecticut. And I said, they are going to come after our guns, look for mass shootings. And then magically it happens. This is staged.
That's when our world turned upside down again.
It started less than 48 hours after the shooting, and then it grew exponentially.
We need to analyze all these videos now.
Emails, letters threatening us.
There was a contagion spreading to billions of people, and it was only getting worse.
And that's when I filed the lawsuit against Alex Jones.
You will love it. It is so good. It is about how Alex Jones started the conspiracy theory that Sandy Hook didn't happen.
And Alex Jones is a DJ, correct?
Sorry,
like a talkback. No, a talkback guy.
Yeah, he
not a DJ like a club DJ, like a talkback radio host. Am I correct?
Yes.
So,
yeah, television. So InfoWars was his show. I think it's still running. So he
it got kicked off a lot of like YouTube and everywhere. I think it's sort of gone a bit underground.
Yeah. So he runs InfoWars, and he would get on television and is very much a
conspiracy theorist.
And then he kept saying, you know, oh, we're going to hear about all these school shootings because they want to take the guns off us and they're going to threaten our Second Amendment.
It was just shocking. And he would send all his people to attack the parents of little kids that were killed in Sandy Hook to say, you're actors, you're just like, it was insane. And they ended up suing him, right?
They ended up suing him. And it is all the footage from inside the courtroom. To see Alex Jones sit on trial and have to look in the eye the parents that he mocked, that he said he called them actors. These parents would walk down the street.
He said that kids didn't exist.
Yeah, some of it's quite graphic, but a father explained holding his son who had died and what he saw.
Oh, my God.
And he was called
Jessie,
on
this sounds
InfoWars.
horrific.
No, it is so important.
Why?
Because of what it says about the importance of grasping the truth. It has never been more relevant. The bravery of these Sandy Hook parents, as if they hadn't been traumatized enough by what happened to them in 2012, to then go, you can't do that. Like, you're not allowed to get on your platform, and this was the clincher, make money, make so much money off the lies that Sandy Hook didn't happen, and say that when I saw my son, I tell you what I saw, you're going to say you are a liar. And what they put themselves through, because they would walk down the street, they would have letters sent to their house.
They would have death threats.
They would have death threats.
You can't even get your head around it.
Why anyone would do it.
Because of men like Alex Jones, I read recently in coverage of the court case when he was found liable for damages, I think it's something like 21% of Americans do not believe that Sandy Hook happened.
1 in 5. And that's what they talk about. And
terrifying.
Watching the way that you concede distrust and the way, I mean, it's very Donald Trump. I think it's very important to watch coming up to the US election to just go, do I believe anything I see? What ultimately happened, I mean, the damages that were awarded were $965 million.
So what's happened to him now?
He has declared bankruptcy, but now I believe he's basically sitting in front of a bankruptcy court working out, because he's got money somewhere.
Yeah.
He's making a lot of money off these vitamins that he's selling.
Sells.
But there are moments in the documentary where he comes face to face with a parent and tries to speak to them.
Is he ashamed?
Yeah, I was going to say, has he conceded anything here?
Does he concede it?
No. There is a fascinating scene early on. So he truly proclaimed that Sandy Hook didn't happen. And there is a fascinating scene where they get the police report and the detective has written down exactly what they saw. They hand it to him and they film him reading exactly what was seen. Because he was sitting there going, you're telling me that children died? Why were there no trauma helicopters? Why were there no paramedics? And a parent's going, because all of them were dead is why. It is so confronting, but I think it's really important because at the moment I'm seeing it.
What's his face like when he reads it?
You see something switch, but the cognitive dissonance of not being able to admit that he was wrong and how he tries to save face with his own audience, because he's fronting a courtroom while then going on InfoWars in the afternoon and talking about what he just saw and mocking the parents You have to watch it. So it's called The Truth versus Alex Jones. It is on Binge. Watch it.
I'm just going to bring it right back down to basics and recommend something that costs, I think it's like $2. You know, I love phone gadgets. It's my Roman Empire. How can I accessorize my phone? It's a podcast, so you can't see it. But
she's
I'm
literally got 3 things on her
holding
phone.
up my phone. I've got a Le Cap phone strap, which I absolutely love. I've got this other thing that has my AirPods that are attached to my
mini handbag.
phone. Yeah, like a little mini handbag. And then on the back, I've got this thing. It's a little thin piece of rubber with little,
looks a bit like Lego.
It looks like an octopus's paw.
Okay, yes. Little suction things. And you stick it, it's made by 3M, who make Post-it notes. You peel the sticker off and you stick it on the back of your phone, and it means your phone can stick anywhere. Now, I often...
You say anywhere.
Do I trust that?
Oh, sorry, on anything glass or a mirror.
Phone.
I just put it on glass before. Mia gave me one. This is life-changing stuff.
Yeah. So if you have to create content, I know not everybody listening does, but if you want to take selfies, if you want to take videos, if you just want to have your phone up and watch something, or have your phone something playing, you don't have to prop it up, you don't have to balance it. It's amazing. It's only a couple of bucks. We'll put a link in the show notes so that you can sign up for the newsletter, which comes every week to your inbox, and it has links to all our recos.
Well, that really ran the gamut, didn't it? That recommendation.
It's been on a journey. Outlouders don't say we don't give you some eclectic recommendations.
Very different. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we drop new segments of Mamamia Out Loud just for Mamamia subscribers. Follow the link in the show notes to get your daily dose of Out Loud, and a big thank you to all our current subscribers.
It's Friday, so we are reflecting on our week with our best and worst. Who wants to go first? Holly.
So my worst was the result of very generous Out Louder. So sorry, Out Louder, that I'm about to
put you in it.
Poo on your very lovely gift. I am a fraud of a gardener because you wouldn't believe this, but some people turned up to our Brisbane show with gardening gifts for me. Bitches!
Wow.
You two are like,
That's
no,
funny.
they didn't, because nobody likes your gardening content. Maybe some people do. Anyway, lovely Out Louders who travelled for 6 hours to get to our show, not just for me, has to be said. I'm sure you two had something to do with that.
What did they give you?
A choco. Do you know what a choco
No,
is?
I have no idea what a choco
Yeah, I
is.
do actually.
What's
it's a
a choco?
type of
Chocolate?
That's Chiquito. It's a type of thing that grows, I think, on a tree, but it takes on the flavour of whatever you cook it with. So you can use it in savoury things.
Like
How do I know
tofu.
this? It's pretty
it grows on a
boring.
vine.
Yeah.
I need to Google what a choco
Originally
looks like.
from China, maybe, I think. But they grow on a vine and they kind of look like lumpy pears, big green pears.
Would I have eaten it?
Maybe.
No,
like people
'cause it's very
sometimes use it
unmemorable.
instead of like potato.
I've never seen such
It's
a thing
fruit,
before.
I believe, but it's also a bit vegetable-y. Anyway,
It looks like a wrinkly capsicum.
my failure is that these wonderful outlouders brought the choco all the way to Brisbane so that I could have it and plant it and grow all the chocos that my little heart desires. I didn't. I immediately killed the choco. It's gone. It's no more.
Did you choco the choco?
I chocoed the choco. Jessie Lee, our head of pods, brought it for me.
You killed it quickly.
I killed it. And I
Like
didn't
what?
bring
On
it
the way
back.
home on the plane?
Didn't bring it back. It is no more.
What, you killed it before you even
I
left
did.
Brisbane?
So no chocos for me, but also I was like, do I know how and where I'm going to grow those? I don't think I do.
How disrespectful to the Out Loud.
I know,
that
I'm
gave you a
very,
gift.
very sorry to my Out Loud friends.
Aw.
But that was my worst because I appreciate the gesture.
Yeah.
Okay.
The gesture was fabulous. My best is that next week I'm launching a new podcast. I don't know if you've heard about it, you two. Mia's heard a bit about it. I think Jessie's been trying to avoid it as much as possible.
It's true.
It's called Mid, and it's about Generation X women.
My name is Holly Wainwright, and I am mid. Midlife, mid-family, mid-identity crisis. Mid-adventure, mid-conversation, mid-moment. There is nothing mid about making it this far and still being full of questions. Mid can be the ordinary part. At least that's what they'd like us to believe. But there's some really good shit here in mid. The bit where the problems are bigger, but so is the joy. The question of who you are has been settled, but it's still a daily surprise. What you're capable of, what you can achieve.
My best is that while we've been working on it and putting it together, it's a show that's very much about you, as in the listeners. Like, it's very much about ordinary Gen X women out there and the things that they're dealing with. And they're conversations that I'm having with a range of people about all kinds of stuff. But we're
Tapping
talking
into the wisdom of Holly.
Oh, yeah. And
No, it is. I was listening. I was meant to be listening for work to give feedback, and I just forgot that and just got really interested in the conversation and listening to Holly's wise words.
Oh, that's lovely. But anyway, when we were talking about how to promote it, because as you would know, anytime a podcast comes out or a new product comes out, it's like, what should we put in a video? What should we put in the socials that we're going to put out there?
What TikTok will you make?
Yeah. How do we represent this in the world? And I was like, I really want it to represent the women who are listening. And so I put a shout out in the Out Louders Facebook group, and I put a shout out on my Instagram for Gen X women to send me a photo or a little snippet of video that represented them in their midlife moment. And that could have been an achievement or something they're proud of, or even them being vulnerable or whatever. Oh my God. If you ask Gen X women to do something, they get shit done.
It's because they're busy, so they know they need
do.
to do it now.
I got
Also because we get ignored so often that if anyone asks us, pays us any attention, we're like, okay, I know the assignment.
did you get?
the most incredible. Go and look at the feed in the Out Louders group. Anybody who's listening to this who's feeling a bit meh, which is the whole thing about mid, right? Mid is a word that is often used as a sort of insult, right? And I want to reclaim it. But if you're feeling a bit mid, go and look at that thread in the Out Louders group, because there are women graduating from their master's degrees. There are women climbing mountains. There are women showing off their fancy outfits. There are women cuddling their grandchildren. There are women who've had cancer treatment recently. There are women who are, I don't know, just show me their latest red lipsticks, cold water swimming, going hiking, lots of hiking, midlife women like a walk. Just endless achievements and also just happy moments and the things that they love.
adventures.
It is so uplifting. So I was sharing all these images with our young team who are putting the videos together. Billy, one of our video producers, was saying to me, oh my God, women are amazing. I just feel so happy after looking at all these pictures. So thank you to every Gen X woman who participated in that. But just also, you are my best. Like, what a lot of amazing women. And hopefully you're going to love Mid too. So search for it in your podcast app and subscribe right now. The feed is live. The trailer is in there. The first episode drops on Tuesday. You know I'm going to bore you about it a lot more between here and there, but really,
So good.
You're all in there. It's fabulous.
My worst was also tour related. Last week we were in Brisbane for the show. We were all excited. We had quite a new crew. The three of us are old hands at this, but we had a new producer traveling with us.
Emeline hadn't been on
hadn't-
tour with us before.
And we had Liv, who is our social media producer. We had Harry, who's our creative director. And we had Lucy Ormond, who's our production manager of the show. Anyway, we were all on the road. We really congratulated ourselves. Job well done. Got
Dream
home.
team.
Dream team. over the weekend.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong?
Do you remember COVID? So we did not have a contingency plan, friends, for both our producer and our social person going down with COVID over the weekend. So then we were like, poor Emeline, poor Liv. We were like, oh, who was in the car with them? Who flew with them? We all had to immediately go into a room and do a COVID test. Hari was very anxious.
I've been testing daily.
I had forgotten how to do a COVID test. I had to ask you two, like, how long have I got to stick it up my nose for? How long have I got to dangle it in the thing? Oh, yeah, all the different steps. It's so funny how I've just blocked that out. None of us had it. We've recruited some wonderful, what do you say, like people off the bench. So we've got another new
Lucky
crew.
for us, we have a deep bench of very talented
We're
people.
going to be travelling with Dolph. We're going to be travelling with Grace. It's going to be very exciting.
And we're getting our hazmat suits out.
And we will be wearing masks, so you probably will not see us in airpods. I'm just saying I did fly with a mask because you know what I'm like, but you two didn't.
I did.
Shush now.
Oh, you flew with a mask?
I flew with a mask. Yep, I did.
Interesting.
I
You
was
do
very
so much
scared.
air travel, don't you?
I need to have my mask on me. I'm not getting COVID.
No, we just can't. So anyway, my best this week also happened in Brisbane. So the morning after the show, we were downstairs. I decided to stay a bit longer. I was on a later flight. Jessie, you were down there. Your mum was with you. As we were chatting in the lobby, a group of very glamorous looking women dressed in hot pink pajamas with like feathers on the cuffs arrived and high heels. And I was like, what's going on there? And they just looked so fabulous. And I was like, I need to go over. And before I could go over and ask them, one of them, who was heavily pregnant, came over and said, I've been voted the one because I'm pregnant to come over and tell you we're Mad Out Louders. We love the show. And I'm like, what's going on here? And she said, we are here for a friend's wedding. We're the bridesmaids. Wedding's happening at the hotel. We've just been upstairs getting ready. And then someone heard that you guys were downstairs and we just wanted to meet you. So we had a photo with them and then we would chat. And then the bride arrived. She'd been told that she had her hair in curlers. She was, I think, in a dressing gown.
I think she said to the makeup artist, hold.
Yeah, just hold.
Pause.
She
I
came
have something
down.
I need
Her
to
name
do.
was Cassie. She started crying. I said, Cassie, this is the best day of your life now, isn't it? Like it was just going to be an ordinary day, your wedding day. But now this is the highlight of the day. Yeah. The only reason you'll remember today is because you met us. Cassie, we were so excited for her. We hoped that we were good luck. We still want to see the photos,
I've
the
seen
after
it.
photos.
It's in the Out Louders.
Okay.
It is the most stunning wedding dress.
They looked like an amazing bridal party.
Oh, so much fun. I feel so happy we were there for her day in the end.
I met
I would
some
like
of
to
those
have
bridesmaids when I was having breakfast much earlier in the day and they were like, oh, Amir and Jessie here too. And I was like,
yes.
if you hang around, you might see them.
Yes.
My worst, I'm just going to gesture broadly. We live in the news cycle as we must for the work we do. The last 6 to 12 months have not been good for the news cycle, but I think particularly this week with Israel launching an offensive of Rafah and the images I've seen of particularly children, they're just things that I don't think any of us are ever going to forget.
Yeah, no, it's horrific.
On that as well, there was a video that was released this week, a hostage video of Hirsch Goldberg Pollen, who is a hostage who's been held for more than 200 days. And the thing that his parents noticed when they watched, well, everyone saw when they watched the hostage video, was that his left arm had been amputated. And the devastation, the scale, the gravity of this kind of tragedy is just something that is very hard to get our head around. So
we're hoping for a ceasefire and for the return of the hostages. Yeah, it doesn't seem like words are enough, but it is heartbreaking.
Look, light and shade on this show, as always, when it comes to our bests and worsts. My best, though, is this week we've been doing it for a little while, but we decided to have like a siblings dinner with us kids. We've started doing it probably this year because we realised that when you're a family, so there's 6 of us, 4 kids, when your parents are around, the dynamics are very different. Sometimes you can fall into very Jessie at 14 territory, and it's not a person I like or want to spend time with. So even like going back to your childhood house with my parents, I just become this person. Like certain dynamics play out. Anyway, we were like, what we should do is just do a siblings dinner like once a month, because I don't enjoy anyone's company like I enjoy my brother's company. No offense, guys.
Were partners invited?
No
Because
partners.
that can also make a difference.
Yep.
My brother and I have started doing, I've got to book in another one, having a family of origin dinner.
Yes.
Because partners change the dynamics too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that. But siblings, yeah.
Siblings, so good. So we just go to the pub. I mean, do we bitch about mum and dad? Yeah. We do different impersonations of them. They're just like living such interesting lives. My brother, Jack, is currently volunteering at a prison. And so he's spending all this time in this men's prison and the stories he's got. And my other brother, Nick, is going to do a master's in play therapy. So
that would be useful for you.
Yes.
Fascinating.
By far, I am the least interesting person in my family who speaks the most. So just to go there and be like, what you're doing is far, far more interesting. So that was just very cup filling this week.
Outlouders, you've been asking for another grandma update from Mia, right? Because obviously my
Been almost a year.
Speaking of the third parent, the grandmothers in our family.
Anne and I job share the role of third parent.
Exactly.
Ask and you shall receive. In yesterday's episode, Mia talks about what surprised her most about being a grandma, how she survived that first identity shock.
A lot about me.
And what she's learned so far. Here's a little peek of the conversation that we had.
I'm deeply besotted and growing more besotted by the day. Just when I thought the love couldn't get bigger, the love somehow gets bigger because she kind of knows who I am now and she likes me. We're developing our little relationship with our little in-jokes and our little routines.
In-jokes.
What's your in-joke? Do you want to share with the Out Louders an in-joke you have with the 10-month-old?
When Kim Kardashian said about Northwest once, she likes neutrals and Northwest at the time was 6 months old.
Yes.
No 6-month-old likes neutrals, by the way.
Well, funnily enough, Luna likes tutus. Did I cry? I feel like I might have cried. There's a link to that episode in the show notes. And because you don't hear nearly enough from us, we've actually done a special one-off episode about how we have and continue to foster creativity from when we were kids into adulthood. A lot of people ask us about creativity and how we come up with so many ideas for the show and how we manage all the other things that we have to do in our life with being creative. It's a little bit of a peek behind the curtain of the type of thing you usually would only get in a subscribers episode. For example, I tell a great story about how I used to take extra clothes to kindergarten.
An expression of your creativity.
The place that you'll find that is not here. It's in the feed of the That's Incredible podcast. We'll pop a link to that also in the show notes.
Thank you for listening to Australia's #1 news and pop culture show. It was produced by Emeline Gazilas. The assistant producer is Tahli Blackman. And we've had audio production from Leah Porges. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Shout out to any Mamamia subscribers listening. If you love the show and you want to support us, subscribing to Mamamia is the very best way to do so. There's a link in the episode description.